Good morning, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. This is Rich again, back for your first video blog of the day for September 7, 2014, around 5:50 in the morning. The sun is going to rise in a few more minutes, and it's going to be another nice and sunny day, lower humidity, highs in the 70s. And today starts the first Sunday of NFL football for the next 20 weeks or so. And also, the Boston Red Sox beat the Toronto Blue Jays by the score of 4-3. And it's Happy Grandparents' Day in the United States and Canada. And 35 years ago today, a cable network called ESPN signed on the air for the first time. ESPN's the worldwide leader in sports. And speaking about the worldwide leader in sports, my first subject of the day will be about ESPN in the early years from 1979 through the early 1990s. ESPN was founded by Bill Rasmussen and his son Scott Rasmussen, in no relation to former MLB pitchers Dennis Rasmussen or Eric Rasmussen, and also Ed Egan. The original concept for ESPN was going to be a regional sports network that was going to carry all focus on sports in the state of Connecticut. It was going to be something like carrying New England Whalers games, Yukon basketball, and some minor league sports, including like minor league baseball games. But they decided against it because not too many people in Connecticut had cable back in the late 70s and stuff like that. And the original name for ESPN was ESP, Entertainment and Sports Programming. There was going to be some entertainment stuff as well and sports programming. And they needed a big backer, a corporation to back them. So they sold the original concept to like Getty bought like the rights to ESPN, but they still had like Bill Rasmussen and his son Scott and Eggy Egan still have the concept of it, and they really changed the name before signing to ESPN. And 6 months before they signed on the air, they signed a deal with the NCAA to carry 18 sports. It was a long-term deal. Some of the sports they were going to carry were like NCAA baseball games and the college basketball games and lower division 2 and 3 college football, among others, and also NCAA hockey. And during the summer of 1979, they started to hire a sports crew, including George Grandy, Jim Simpson, Bob Lee, Chris Berman, Dick Vitale, Lee Leonard, among others. And on September 7th, 1979 at 7 p.m., the first Sports Center was launched. It was the first programming on ESPN. George Grandy and Lee Leonard were the first Sports Center anchors. And originally Sports Center, they could only like show games in the Northeast, highlights of games in the Northeast, mainly Boston sports teams, Hartford Whalers, and the New York sports teams, because the area, they just only had satellite capability for that. And ESPN had like some growing pains and stuff like that. In the some of the programming they used to show in the early days were like Australian rules football, kickboxing, darts, and other like niche sports. In 1980, ESPN covered the NFL draft for the first time, and they've been covering it forever since. And they also showed the Baseball Hall of Fame induction ceremonies beginning in 1980, and also they started the first NFL countdown show, NFL pregame show in 1980, hosted by Chris Berman. And other stuff they actually showed on ESPN during the early years was a business show, which they carried through 1991, and a fashion show. Unbelievable. And in 1980, from 1980 to 1982, ESPN carried some Harvard Whalers games and Minnesota North Star games separate from the package from like other NHL teams in the United States. ESPN could not get like the major professional sports in its early years because they were tied up for contracts with the major networks ABC, NBC, and CBS, and plus USA Network had the NHL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball games on cable, so they couldn't get those rights at that time. 1982, they signed up the ESPN carried the NBA for 2 years. They joint shared the package for the NBA cable rights with USA Network, but in 1984 they went to Turner Sports, and they've been on Turner Sports ever since. Also, in the early years of ESPN around 1980, they showed some first and second round games of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. They did this for about 10 years to 1990, and the NCAA men's basketball tournament wasn't as big back in the early 80s and stuff, but they carried it, and that helped their network a little bit. In 1984, ESPN finally got to show the FBS football games, well, called Division One. Before, they did not even show the Division One football games. They showed them on tape delayed, and also some smaller football like Division Two, Division Three, and this also helped the growth of ESPN as well, showing Division One football games live, and ESPN was getting into more homes and stuff, and it was growing. It was growing by the mid 1980s. In 1984, Getty sold 80% of ESPN to ABC, and ABC and ESPN had started a working relationship, which to this day ESPN eventually morphed ABC from ABC Sports to ESPN on ABC, and a lot of people thought when they ABC bought ESPN in 1984, it was eventually going to rebrand it as the ABC Sports Channel or the ABC Sports Network, but luckily that didn't happen because ESPN is a big name, but back in the 80s it was just starting out. And 1985 through 1988, the ESPN signed a deal with the National Hockey League to be its exclusive U.S. cable rights. They took that cable package away from the USA Network. And also, beginning in 1984, for several years, ESPN showed professional wrestling in the afternoon. They showed AWA Championship Wrestling out of Minnesota, Virginia. They taped these shows in the Showboat Pavilion in Las Vegas, Nevada, for many years. Also, they signed with World Class Championship Wrestling out of Dallas, Texas, and they showed it for many years. Eventually, that morphed into the USWA, Dallas, and the GWF. ESPN always showed professional wrestling at 4 in the afternoons, weekdays, except some days they didn't because of golf coverage and other stuff. And that was a ratings hit for ESPN, and ESPN finally kind of continued to put this self on the map in 1987 when the NFL finally decided to go put games on cable. For the first 3 years, ESPN showed like 8 games a year for the NFL second half of the year, and to this day ESPN has NFL football. They eventually got the Sunday night package in 1998, the whole season, and then 2006 they have since 2006 Monday Night Football. And 1990 ESPN got the rights to Major League Baseball games for the cable rights in the United States, because for 6 years Major League Baseball did not have any cable rights from 1984 to 1989, because when NBC and ABC signed a 6-year contract, which was worth over $1 billion, they had no cable games in the United States, so ESPN got the rights to Major League Baseball, and they show games almost every single night of the week the first few years of the contract. And ESPN's number one show, Sports Center, was continuing to grow. They had a morning edition, a night edition, and a late night edition. Sports Center wasn't kind of wall to wall back in the 80s and 90s, early 90s. They showed one at around 8:30 in the morning, another one at 7 p.m. at night, and a late night one at 11 p.m. and the overnight one at 2:30. And they were like getting to be popular, but not like blocks of Sports Center. And ESPN kind of became started to become more and more a player in the world of sports. A lot of sporting talk shows were popping up by the early 90s and stuff, and the Sports Center anchors were becoming famous. And the biggest one of all time, who were the most famous Sports Center anchors, were like Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann. They started hosting Sports Center together around 1992 or so, and they were the two famous Sports Center anchors of all time. And that continued to grow ESPN up. And in October 1st, 1993, ESPN launched ESPN2. And ESPN2 started small, but it grew to be like an alternative to ESPN. I'll talk about ESPN2 later. And this is the end of like the ESPN, the early years. ESPN like had started off with like, a cable network back in the 70s, as they started small because cable wasn't in many homes, but they grew their audience. Eventually they picked up major sports packages along the way. They needed to fill time, so that they showed different kinds of sports which were not on, which you never saw on the major networks and stuff like that. And ESPN has had its ups and downs early on, but they became a brand, a worldwide leader in sports, a brand name, and other stuff. And it's good to see that survive 35 years, and it's going to continue to grow for another 35 years. Nobody's going to knock off ESPN, not Fox Sports 1, not CBS Sports Network, not NBCSN, not anybody. And that's about it for that. I'll be back later on in the day for 2 more video blogs, which will be about the 10 greatest professional wrestling managers of all time, and also New York Yankees captain, shortstop Derek Jeter, who's going to retire at the end of this year. See you later, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. Bye now.